literally the reason why I do this podcast. It might be just for selfish reasons. I love hearing people's stories. It's fascinating to me how like people are here and how they get here from there. Everyone has a story.
Yeah.
And it's,
And the whole point of the film festival is to highlight films that normally won't get seen by our community, And I was like, look, I'm a movie guy. If it's a great story, and there's value in it somewhere, like I think people should see it. And even if it's something I don't agree with, because it sparks conversation. Again, it's about civil. This is an opportunity to celebrate a movie about a story of freedom.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Lyfe podcast. Today I'm super excited to sit down with my good friend Matt Edwards, husband, father, community leader, executive director of Citizens Alliance of Idaho, co-founder of North Idaho Film Festival. But as you know, this podcast is all about, people's stories. And dude, I just want to hear your story. I don't think I know a lot of your story. So I want to hear what's going on, man.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out it all myself too. But thanks for having me, Dan.
Oh, man, and my pleasure. And I mean, so 30 years ago, did you picture yourself living in North Idaho and doing, heavily, involved in politics and bringing a film festival to a place called Coeur d'Alene, Idaho? How did all this start?
That was never on the agenda. I've always wanted to make sure that I was involved in film from an early age. Like I loved movies and I loved television, and I grew up in a very interesting household. Now that I look back on it, it's kind of like, when you're a kid, you only know what you know, right? And everything is normal, right? And I thought, I was growing up in a fairly simple middle-class family in Southern California, living the dream, where 299 days of the year are perfect, It was
just like Weather, right?
Yeah, just like Weather. And just living life and loving it. But when I look back on my circumstances and everything, it's interesting to see that, I was raised mostly by a divorced mom. I had an older brother and a younger sister that I grew up with. But even then, we still had our issues, our problems. I went to go live with my dad for a year, and my stepmom. And so there's all these different aspects, about my childhood that I think aren't necessarily, they're not necessarily unique, but they're also not just your classic normal, grew up in a normal mother and father and had everything going for you. Looking back, my mom was heavily subsidized by my grandparents. The house we lived in was owned by my grandparents. My mom struggled, was always struggling for work and making sure that she could provide for the kids, and I give her a lot of, the amount of work that she had to do to endure with us at such an early age for us, is pretty amazing. And I think because of that dynamic, that's kind of what led me into being interested in movies and television. I was a middle child, so to speak. Like I said, I had an older brother, younger sister, and as a middle child, you're kind of, you're not expected to be responsible for anything, and you're also not given any leeway like the baby of the family is, so you're kind of stuck in this middle ground. So it was classic scenario. And I found myself just kind of escaping into television, and movies. And again, looking back on it, I guess I was sort of an odd kid in that, sure, I liked cartoons and watching, your typical cartoon stuff. But when I started getting a little bit older, I'm talking about maybe 9, 10 years old, 8, I was really interested in more of the regular, entertainment that's geared towards adults. I specifically remember being 8 years old and begging my mom to let me stay up to watch the final episode of MASH. you remember the TV show MASH? Yeah.
At 8?
At 8 years old.
Holy Toledo.
Yeah, I mean, it was everything for me to watch what would be the final episode of a show that went on the air before I was born, you know? I mean, it was on 11 years, I think.
Yeah.
But I knew the gravity of the situation, that this was the last episode of MASH. And yeah, I was 8 years old. And I loved watching Hitchcock movies. Jaws has been my favorite movie ever since I was a little kid.
Like still.
Oh, still, yeah.
Oh.
My top favorite.
Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 50 years old, just like me. And so I was really, I really took a liking to all of that. I watched The Twilight Zone, you know, before I was 10. I mean, I just really loved interesting stories. I love the escape, the fantasy, and also the realism, you know, that movies provided.
Yeah.
The way that they kind of depict, that's sort of like where I landed later on in my career. I was really more interested in real life stories, documentaries, and really getting at the truth and showing the truth. So even in a film that's fictional, if it's shot in a way that's very cinematically, you know, documentary style,
Yeah.
I really take to that, and that's how
Like even from a young age.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and again, at the time, it's just normal to me. I
Right.
was just like, well, this is good. I'm going to watch it. It's Jaws. I'm going to watch it. It's Rear Window. I'm going to watch it. You know, it didn't matter what it was, as long as it was good, you know. And you know, Star Wars, Wizard of Oz, I mean, all this stuff, you know. I watched I Love Lucy. And then as I started getting into adolescence, like even TV shows that were geared towards my age, I called fake. I said they were fake, like Saved by the Bell, you know.
Oh yeah.
Those shows that were geared towards teenagers or young teens. You couldn't pay me to watch that stuff. I was just like, that is so boring, or it
I'm sorry I didn't know that either.
yeah, it was just not real. So I just sort of, you know, I look back on it and I think to myself, like, I was living in a world, excuse me, where I was living in a world where, you know, Knight Rider was on TV, The Fall Guy was on TV,
Come on.
the A-Team was on TV,
Come on.
and they were all filmed in like my town.
That's
So
pretty cool.
So I would walk out of my grandparents' house, who lived around the block from me, and they would be filming The Fall Guy and they'd be doing a stunt with a car, and they'd overturn a car like on the road that like I played on, you know. So
okay, that's pretty cool.
yeah, or the Knight Rider car driving through the park that I have a summer camp at, you know. They're like, get out of the way, kids, here comes the Knight Rider. And you're just like, whoa, like everything was real to me. It was all real, because then I'd see that on TV the next night, you know, on Friday nights or whatever.
Yeah.
It was. So the worlds clashed, and it was very much the industry. It's like, if you're born in Iowa, you're going to grow corn, probably, you know.
Yeah.
If you live in North Idaho, you're going to get into logging back then, you know, or something, you know. So like there's like industries that are just around, and that was the industry, and it was around me all the time. And so naturally I just took to it and wanted to be involved in whatever capacity I could. So, you know, in high school and college, and, you know, working in theater, and, you know, learning directing, learning acting and writing and all this stuff. And it was unbeknownst to me, though, is that, everybody and their mother was, moving to Los Angeles to compete with what I wanted to do. You know, like, it was like, if you wanted to be famous, if you wanted to be a celebrity, you came to LA. If you wanted to work in the industry, you came to LA. Even if you just wanted to be a grip, you know, not famous, but you just wanted to have a career as an electrician or as a makeup artist or something, you had to go to LA if you wanted to be in the movie or TV business. And so that was my hometown. And so all of these, quote, outsiders coming in, you know, taking jobs that felt like I was born to have, you know.
Yeah.
But I never had animosity towards anybody. In fact, you know, once I started getting a little bit older and was you know, working waiting tables and doing the things that movie people are doing when they're not doing movies, right?
Yeah.
I was always fascinated with other people's stories who moved here, you know, who moved to Los Angeles. Oh, what are you doing here? And most often it's because they were trying to chase a career in entertainment. And it was so cool to meet so many people, you know, coming from Ohio or Michigan or Texas or Florida, Georgia, wherever they were coming. And it was really fascinating. And I loved it. I always loved saying, well, welcome to Los Angeles. You know, anytime, like, you know, you need, I'd always give them tips, on how to drive through the traffic, don't ever take this road, you always take that road kind of thing,
Yeah.
And so I really enjoyed that. And yeah, so, after coming back from college, I just, I didn't finish college because I wanted to jump right into the industry, the entertainment business. And so I got a break one time when someone said, hey, they're shooting this short film and they need a PA, production assistant.
Okay.
And I said, I'll do it. And they said, well, they're not going to pay you anything. I was like, I don't care. Like, I want to learn.
Yeah.
I want to be on a movie set.
Yeah.
And so I show up on this movie set and there's like known actors, like, who are in this little short film. It's like an experimental short film or more of like a proof of concept. They were making a short film to prove to the studio that they could make a larger film, right? And so there were some known actors there that I recognized from television and young stars. And I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is legit, right?
Yeah.
And so my role, this is funny because my role was to assist the camera person, right? To assist the cinematographer. I knew nothing about cameras. Absolutely not. I knew more about the sort of the writing and the directing side of things. I never really got into the technical things of camera and lighting and stuff like that. But whatever, I was there. I was working for free. I'll just tell me what to do, and I'll go do it. And I remember the cinematographer saying to me, "Hey, I need you to go to the truck and grab the sticks." Sure, you got it, man. So I ran to the truck, the production truck, and I'm looking in the truck, and there's just all sorts of things that I've never seen before. Just gear and, just like sticks. Okay, so I'm going to assume they're kind of like sticks, they're long, thin, right? Like, they could be huge, they could be small. I don't know. So I'm kind of looking and I just really don't know what to grab. And luckily there was a guy on the truck because there's guys there that drive trucks and they just sit with the truck, right? Their only job is to drive the truck. And so I said, let me ask you a question. If someone were to ask you to go to the truck and grab the sticks, what would you grab?
Come on. Think of that. There you go.
And he goes, the tripod. I said, tripod, of course, sticks. It's got sticks on it. Grab the sticks.
I would not have known that.
Grab the sticks, ran back. Here you go, boss. Yeah, great. Whatever. Same thing. Go back and get the hi-hat. Actually, grab me the low hat. Oh, whoa. Okay. So same thing, go back. This time I was already like, the dude knew I didn't know anything. So I was like, you got the low hat here? He's like, here you go, grab it. So that was my first like on-set production gig, right?
Yeah.
And I did 2 days of that and was just elated because not only did I learn stuff what I was doing, but I learned like set etiquette. Like I was a cinematographer's assistant, right? So I stood next to the cinematographer so I could be at his beck and call whenever he needed me. And I remember sitting there watching, and I'm watching the scene unfold, right? And the actor is looking right towards the camera because the camera's on him, so he's kind of looking at me.
Yeah.
And I'm watching him, and he's delivering his lines, and I'm looking right at him. I'm looking right into his eyes, And he stops midway, and he goes, "Excuse me." He's like, "You're in my eye line. Can you move?" And the cinematographer goes, "Oh yeah, you don't look at the actors." I was like, "Oh, okay, right." So I walked away, and it was those little things that always stuck with me. I mean, here I am, 20 years later, 30 years later, telling this story because like that was so important. And you don't learn that in school. I didn't go to film school, but you don't learn that kind of stuff there. You might if someone relays a story like I do, but you that's not part of the process. It's all about learning on the job, right? Like that's the best way to learn it. It's just trial by fire,
Yeah.
So I learned a lot of little things like that just, and of course the bug was just, it got stronger and stronger. All I wanted to do was that. And then, and then I would help on people's films and do all that stuff and just kind of sign up for anything. Like I was a puppeteer for a music video, like my hand up in a puppet.
Where's your puppet?
I don't know, it was some little monster or something, but it was like, again, a dream come true. Like I grew up watching the Muppets,
Come on.
like who doesn't want to do the Muppets, where they bounce their heads around, it was like
Kermit, Miss Piggy.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on.
So I got to do that, so it's just any job, I said yes to anything. I didn't care if I was getting paid or not. Like, I just didn't care. I mean, if I got a paycheck, I was like, oh, that's awesome, you know? And then I landed my first like real job I came on as a paid production assistant for a television show, a small television show on cable. It was like a sketch comedy show. And because I had, I was a little older than most PAs. I had done a lot of work by that point. I was a quick study. They saw that I knew a little bit more than your average PA. So instantly they were like, oh, you know how to run a camera, or you know what the rules are when you do this or that? Oh, yeah.
You know what sticks are?
I know what sticks are. Yeah, exactly. So I immediately went from the PA to being like, we made up a name for what I was. I don't even remember what it was, but I was something else, so I would run camera and I would do all sorts of different things. So through that long sort of run up to where I could then like quit my job bartending and waiting tables and just say, oh, I can make a living, working in the industry. And in the meantime, do my own writing, work with my friends on the side, doing side indie projects and just exploring the film world, and then as I got more and more involved in it, worlds started to clash a little bit when I would be on set and, during an election year or something, and politics discussions would break out. And I would find myself being completely on the other side of the opinion that most people had on set, and they were on the left and I was on the right. And okay, I'm not gonna. I mean, I like debate and stuff, but I'm not gonna like get into it with people and tell them that they're wrong and all that. So I just usually would keep my mouth shut and only speak when prompted to, I never just joined a conversation like most people would if you heard it going on. Oh, hey, I hear what you're talking about. But I started to learn very quickly how much the industry was filled with a lot of, left-leaning people, some with really radical opinions and ideas and such, and the cross section of life started to take a little bit of a turn because I then was making really good friends, developing friendships with people. I was dating, I was trying to, I was in that world and finding myself like kind of losing my soul a little bit because I was like, well, we're losing, we're losing a little bit because I don't agree with a lot of things, a lot of the directions that our world is going in, or our city is going in, our state, whatever the case may be. And I know how powerful film and television are,
Yes.
They're very powerful. They steer the collective mindset of our country. Again, going back to MASH, right? Like the last episode of MASH was the most watched television event at the time. More people watched that. And that show was number one. And what was that show about? It was about the Korean War, but it was very anti-war. I mean, everybody knows that show had an agenda to say, hey, war is awful. What are we doing over here? And the way the military is run is pretty ridiculous. They were making jokes about all of it and stuff. And so whether or not you agreed or disagreed with that, with what MASH was doing on television, they knew what they were doing. And they had a very clear agenda, later on in their show. And that was a lot of shows did that. And so I found myself at some point, working in reality television, making good money. That like, I was like, what am I contributing to? What am I, some of these things are not very rewarding for me personally. Some of the things are just, I'm a part of something that's being put on TV that's kind of rotting people's brains to an extent. And I just started to pray and think about like, what else can I do? Like, what else is in store for me? Like, help me find some different avenues, to work in. Knowing full well that like, because I didn't toe that line, I probably wasn't going to be successful, because when it comes right down to it, people will judge you based on your political beliefs, because they don't want, not because they're so dramatically opposed to what you believe in, but because the system is set up that if I platform you, or if I give you a job or a voice, like that reflects on me.
Right.
And I'm the person that helped you get along, then I get punished too, and that's a cutthroat town. That would be a career suicide for people to platform people all the time, that people don't agree with. And I'll never forget one of the things that really solidified it for me, the amount that Hollywood really did put its thumb on the scales, was I was invited to go see an edit of a new movie that was coming out. I forget the name of the film. I believe it was a Mel Gibson movie, cop movie, detective story or something. And it didn't do very well in the theater, so I can't remember what it's called at the moment. But I remember going into the big sound stage and watching what was probably the second cut of it, and the producer was there, and the editor, of course, was there, and some other people that were, watching how they were editing the movie. And it was a good movie, it was fine. But one of the notes afterwards was the producer says, "Oh, by the way, there's a moment in here where the bad guy, one of the bad guys, is a political guy, a senator, and he goes, I noticed that you made him a Democrat." Said had a D by it. He's like, "We need to change that to an R."
Really?
Yeah. And again, it had no bearing on the story, right? It wasn't like, but because it was a label that came up while the senator was on a fake TV show,
Yeah.
They had to make sure that because he was the bad guy, that it said R and not D, and I was just like, wow, like something that small was so important to bring up, to change, because in that moment right there, that just solidified another moment for people when they're watching the movie. Who are the bad guys? Oh, the people on the right. Like, it's always that way. It's always that way. And I'm not saying that everybody on the right is good, right? But when you add up all the times they switch from R to D or D to R, it usually goes a long way. So
right.
So again, that was just sort of watching that and having that kind of be a little bit of a bothersome thing for me, because like I said, I grew up in the 80s, California. It was still Reagan country. Like Ronald Reagan was the governor of California, right? The 80s were in Southern California, where I was a big sports fan. The Dodgers, the Lakers. Those were the days. Magic Johnson, Tommy Lasorda, Mike Scioscia. It was amazing, right?
Yeah.
And then in the 90s, Wayne Gretzky came to the Kings. It was like all eyes were on Southern California and LA and stuff. It was so much fun, and being a kid and witnessing the Challenger disaster, the shuttle disaster.
Yeah,
I think I was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 or something, around that time.
Yeah.
That's
about right.
And I remember Ronald Reagan coming, President Reagan coming on the TV and kind of consoling the nation in those moments. And that meant something to me as a kid, that here's this, charismatic, guy, Reagan, right? That meant something to me. Reagan was very patriotic. The song that Trump plays all the time, God Bless the USA, right? The Lee Greenwood song.
Oh, yeah.
That came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
That was a huge, when it came out, it was during the Reagan's term. So that was a huge song back then, and so I was always a very patriotic kid. I loved my country. I hated the commies, the Russians. It was like, if we were out playing out in the park or something, it was like, who's going to be the Americans? Who's going to be the Russians? It's like cops and robbers, Yeah. It was fun. And we were very, it was just kind of ingrained in me. My family wasn't very political at all. It was a working class family, for the most part. My grandfather, I didn't really grow up around my dad, but I grew up around my grandfather, who's a very fatherly influence for me. And he was a technician, a colorist technician at Technicolor, which worked in the movie industry, and they worked in post-production. So they'd get the negatives from the movies.
Oh, yeah.
Every day they'd shoot and they'd deliver the negatives. and he would process the film, So I'd ask him, well, what movies did you see today? Who's in it? It was always in that. So, but we weren't very political. And I say all that because, once I found myself working in the industry and not really jiving with what I was doing and what I was involved in, and of course not having the means money-wise to just go do my own projects, right? If I was raised in a multimillionaire family, I could take my money and go make whatever I wanted. But I actively was like, well, where can I go? Because I knew that there was this sort of bubbling underground conservative movement in Hollywood that was happening. And so I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to find those people, and see who was there, because we could really make something good, If all these talented people are here, we could, and we believe something differently, we could work together, and maybe make something amazing. So I ended up working for it was just like, one thing led to another. And, I applied to work at this small boutique production company, that was run by a right-leaning married couple, and they were making these like cool projects about free speech and, eminent domain and all these different like cool ideas. And they had contracts with different liberty organizations, that were doing different things around the country. And so that's where I kind of got my feet wet in that world of like, of taking what I knew from storytelling, translating it into messages that matter, films that mattered and that I cared about, so that those stories could get told in the real world, so that they can compete in the real world. I mean, you scroll on Netflix, if the stories that I'm passionate about are not on Netflix, they're not going to be seen, or any of these services, right? So you need to learn how to it's almost like reinventing the whole industry for your for your particular worldview, and none of this isn't a big secret. I mean, everybody knows that Hollywood leaned a certain way, and they're out, they're so blatant about it now, obviously. So I started working for them, and that sort of opened some different doors and different opportunities to work with some really great folks, some really talented folks. And then I found myself working at a organization. This is all leading up to, right? It's about 5 years before I start working for this nonprofit organization that's no longer around. And basically what it is they would give grants. They raise money. They would give grants to young filmmakers, like-minded filmmakers, to write stories, to go to workshops, to do film labs, and I eventually, the last few years of that organization, I was like in a dream job scenario. Like I was reading pitches from filmmakers. Oh, here's my idea. And then I'd sit there with my team and we decide on which ideas we should greenlight and give money to, so that they could go make them.
Wow.
And we'd be in the process of making the movie. It was like being a little studio, Yeah. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, here I get to be in this position to sort through great stories, which I have a great eye for because of my entire life of watching great stories, and delivering notes, delivering feedback, working with the team, collaborating. Collaboration is such a huge process in film. It's such an important process. And so by the time it hit, I had helped executive produce over 40 short films,
Wow.
that were made for, roughly average $15,000 each, And, man, some of them were just fantastic. Like some of the most proudest projects I've ever been.
Really?
Yeah.
So where can I see these films?
Well, they're, I mean, we never owned the distribution rights. So they were the filmmakers. So the filmmakers have them out all over the place, so wherever, I mean, they're short films. So unfortunately, short films don't really get highlighted and seen as much, but I'm sure, I can give you a list of,
give me a list.
And you can find them on there.
Is there a way we can just back up for a quick second? Because you grew up loving films, TV shows, that kind of thing. You grew up in Southern California. I know it was the Reagan years, but with the crowd or whatever that you loved, like, why do you think that you had conservative values, or what, like, that you leaned more conservative? Because it would have been probably more easy to, lean left, like politically or with whatever. Like, can you talk about that a little bit? Because that's interesting to me. Like, what made you lean the other way?
I honestly, I wish I knew exactly the thing. Like, I've heard some people's stories who are like, they're on the left, and then like one thing happened to them, and they were like, it just changed their complete mindset.
Yeah.
But I just don't believe I ever had that. I think I just I watched Mr. Smith Goes to Washington when I was a kid, so I had an appreciation for how Congress is supposed to work, right?
Yeah.
But also that film highlighted corruption and cronyism, and so I don't know why. I don't know. I had a kid's book on JFK, right? It was like one of those golden books, and it was about JFK, and it went all the way up to the moment he was killed, right? It wasn't graphic or anything, but it just, like, the last page of this little kid's book on JFK was Lyndon Johnson raising his hand and becoming the president. And I just thought, oh, well, he did it. Because he got to be president.
Yeah.
So and I'm not saying that Lyndon Johnson like had it done, but we all know now that there's a lot of questions about the JFK assassination.
A lot of questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I always had like I guess I always had sort of a contrarian mindset. I always wanted to look at things from the other perspective.
Yeah.
And I believe I do also like to look at things objectively. And try not to be so, I'm very strong about my own principles, but I'm also willing to listen to arguments and change my mind,
Yeah, absolutely.
And live life, I was somebody who was like, very adamant one way, like on like the drug war, and I didn't like seeing mandatory minimums and people going to jail for 25 years because they had, a bit of pot on them or something.
Right.
And so I thought, oh, the drug war is like awful. Like, I don't know what they're doing. There's a lot wrong with it. And I think all this stuff should be legal anyway, just let people be free. And if they're not harming anybody else, what's the big deal? There's already laws on the books. If you harm somebody, what does it matter if you're high or not? Like, that shouldn't be an extra charge.
Right.
Oh, you did it and you were high? Well, that's an extra charge. Like, no, you hurt somebody. Like, you should be responsible for that. But I think, like, if you were to ask me today, I would, and I see the effects of marijuana in California and Colorado and Washington and Oregon and, the full legalization of stuff like that. I'm like, is that the best thing for society? Is that the best thing for my family to live around? Is that beneficial to us as a society?
Right.
And so you kind of, and again, I'm not so hardcore the other way now. But it's a question that is, we have to be able to have civil discourse.
Completely. Yeah. Let's talk about it and
Yeah.
figure out where we're at.
Yeah.
Without getting so angry.
Yeah. Well, the angry thing is, and I'm somebody who's dealt with a lot of anger. Like, I was angry a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably because I grew up without a male father figure, throughout my life, and to teach me how to control my anger. I think it's a very male thing to fall back on anger.
Yeah.
More so than women.
Yeah. I mean, I know, like, I don't think people would classify me as an angry person, but, and I did grow up, two loving parents, all that kind of stuff. So everything was fine. But I know that sometimes anger is a default to me. Like,
right.
Like, you just get, and I feel like I hold it in, but people that are close to me are like, dude, why are you so angry? I'm like, take it, stop it.
Yeah.
Don't call me on my stuff.
Right. Well, I only know you publicly, and I would never call you an angry person. So you do.
No, but
you
I
do
think
well
for
to
guys,
control-
it's like,
but it's an issue.
Yeah.
It's an issue, and you need to learn how to control that. And so, at some point in my mid 20s and late 20s, someone talked to me about. I was listening to somebody talk about people cutting you off on the freeway.
Yeah.
And they would say, what if you just didn't get mad? Just, it happened, And I was like, I'm going to try that, because I was the guy, oh, I see you coming up on the shoulder.
Yeah.
I like, you're not going to get by me. And I would like creep into the shoulder just so you wouldn't pass.
Sam is not guilty of that.
And then I stopped doing that. And it's not to say I didn't care, but, like you said earlier, when we were talking about this issue, like maybe the person is trying to get to the hospital, maybe they're having a worse day than you are. I mean, who knows what it is, but at the very least, I'm not going to let that person live rent free in my head for the rest of the day,
Right.
because I got angry. Like, why would I let that happen?
I know.
I'm going to control me. And, I've only ever doubled and tripled down on that through the rest of my life. Like, I don't care, I mean, I'm not a pushover. I try to be objective, but I'm not going to let that just ruin my day.
Right.
Because then it ruins your relationships with other people. It ruins your day at work, or you come home to your family. And why do you want to carry that stuff throughout the day?
Right. I think there's enough things that we should fight over, that we should battle for. Like there's some certain things, certain principles that we should like, you know what? I'm going to fight for this principle. I'm gonna fight for this freedom. I'm going to fight for this, whatever, something that's happening, injustice to kids or whatever.
Yeah.
We can't fight everything just because we might have a disagreement.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dude, I totally get that.
And which then leads to the I'm not even gonna say the word because I don't want you to get banned, but it leads to 2020. Like what happened in 2020.
Yeah.
Like here I was in this amazing position at this organization, helping young filmmakers.
Yeah.
Creating fantastic stories. And getting them seen. We started having mini festivals across the country where we'd show these films, we'd get public reaction and that sort of thing. And then 2020 hits and March hits and everybody's got to stay home for 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And then a month. And when you're in Los Angeles and California, Gavin Newsom and Eric Garcetti, like it was the real lockdown. I mean, it was shut down. I mean, they put sand in the skate parks so that kids couldn't skate in the skate park. Right. They locked up basketball hoops. If you were running alone on the beach, 5 cops would chase you down until you get off the beach. I mean, it was a total lockdown.
Yeah.
And if you're living in Southern California and you're dealing with high rent, high gas prices, high food prices, traffic, homelessness, all of the garbage that was out there, and then they tell you can't go outside and go to the beach.
Right.
There's really no reason to stay,
Yep.
And my wife had just given birth to our 3rd child in March of 2020. We had a home birth and he was born. And then a week later, there was a mass mandate. I mean, that's how close, in time that he was born. And so he was born in March. And I'm just going to skip to the good part because he was born in March, my 3rd. By September, we were moving into Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
How did you get Coeur d'Alene? Like what?
How do we
like from California? How do you know that Coeur d'Alene exists?
Yeah, that's funny. Because we were looking all over. Where could we be free, right? And Idaho was on the list. Texas was on the list. Florida was on the list. Tennessee was on the list. Arizona was on the list. And not just because they were free, but also because we knew people that were leaving California, and these were some of the places they were going. So it's like, well, who do we want to escape with?
Yeah.
And we looked at Southern Idaho, and we didn't know anybody who was coming up here. I kind of checked it out remotely. We didn't come to Southern Idaho, and I thought, you know what? It's too dry. It's too desert-like, and that's not really what I'm looking for. Arizona was kind of the same thing. Nashville, way more plush and green and very pretty and stuff, but very humid. Texas, the same thing. Florida, kind of the same thing. And I had a buddy of mine call me and say, hey, what's going on? What are you doing? I'm currently right now, I'm driving through Coeur d'Alene. I said, oh, Coeur d'Alene. I've heard of that place. What are you doing? He's like, oh, we're just driving through. He's from Washington originally. You're on a trip or something. I said, Coeur d'Alene, I've heard of that place. Let me look it up again. And then I just was like, wow, this place is gorgeous. And it started checking off boxes. There was a lot of water, with the rivers and the lakes, all the seasons, the trees, had this very mountain feel in terms of the topography and stuff, It was small community. Maybe we could buy some acreage or something, and just kind of like get away from it. We were looking for a place to raise our family. I mean, it was like, you're, the last day of preschool for my son, I dropped him off and there was a drug addict 5 feet from the door of the preschool. And all his parents were just looking at him and
it's normal or by him.
Yeah. And I'm like, how did we get to that? Where that's just normal, Even the school, it wasn't like the school said, hey, you got to leave. Kids get dropped off here. It was just normal to have these people hanging around. It's not normal.
No,
it's not. So I just was like, I gotta protect my kids.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Dave, coming here, I've met some great people that are from here, like yourself and your wife and your family. And a lot of great people that are from here. But some of the rhetoric from people who, like, I'm 5th generation or I'm 4th generation, or I've been here 30 years, just that alone, and they try to make you feel bad for moving,
Yeah.
And I like, you don't know what I've been through to get here, not just physically, like driving 17 hours in one day through the 2020 wildfires of California and Oregon, that was an incredible escape. It was like driving through hell to get to paradise, we were in orange skies. You could not see the sky. It was all orange.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Driving through, we stayed one night in Redding, California, because, no, that's where we were planning on staying. And then I checked the roads and every road out of California was shut down. You couldn't get out of California because of the fires. They were all shut down. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, all right, well, it's 11 p.m. I'm just going to I'll wake up every hour and check the roads and see if they're open, And at about 2 a.m., I was like, this says the road's open. And she says, should we go? I said, let's just go. Let's go. So we got back in the car, drove through. Luckily, the road was open. There were fires burning on the side of the highway. It was
crazy.
There was fire everywhere. It was absolutely insane until we hit Portland, and then it kind of it opened up, and then it was at the highway that runs along the Columbia River.
Yep.
So I took that.
Can't remember the name of it, but I know which one.
Yeah. It might be the 90. Is it the 90?
No, 90 goes to Seattle.
Seattle. Okay.
But I know what you're talking about.
480 or something like that. Yeah. And so when we finally got to that, it was like clear skies. I was like, okay, and then we took that long trip into Coeur d'Alene. I remember getting here at 8 p.m. September, and just pulled into the Coeur d'Alene Resort parking lot where the McEwen Park is.
Oh yeah.
And there was a concert had just ended, and there were all these young people coming out, no masks. They were all gathered in the park, having a great time. And I thought, just a day ago, I was in Los Angeles where everybody was masked. Everybody was hunkered down. There was not a soul in sight, and up here it was freedom,
Yeah.
And it was, you turn your life upside down. I had a job that I loved. I had a career in an industry that I loved. My wife just gave birth to our 3rd child. Everything was wonderful. And it all got shut down just like that. Ripped away from us. All our dreams ripped away from us. And thank God Idaho was Idaho. And so I came here and all I wanted to do was, like, I didn't want to bother anybody. I just wanted to like live my life, raise my kids, send them to school, send them to public school too. I would never think of it in Los Angeles, right? But I was like, I could send them to public school here, That's amazing.
Yeah.
So we signed him up for public school. Dave, you know what they did when they said they said he had to wear a mask?
I know.
To go to kindergarten.
I know.
And I was like, no, I'm not doing this again. Like, I'm not doing this again. And everybody around was like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's not. I'm like, it is a big deal. You do not know what I just left. And if you leave this unchecked, it is only going to get worse.
Yeah.
And that was the first sign, And then I started like going to school board meetings or watching school board meetings or look at the material that they were going to start disseminating and approve and stuff. And I start seeing things that are like, wait a minute, that's the stuff that they started back in LA like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That is now turning all these kids into woke, social justice warriors. And they want to start doing that here? Wait a minute. No, we're not. No, I'm telling you. So I felt like a time traveler. I felt like I'm from the future, The future is California, Washington, and Oregon. Like I'm from the future. I'm here to warn you,
Yeah.
I'll be back, like you can't go, you don't want to go down this road. If you're a conservative, if you're a conservative, or if you care about families, if you care about traditions, if you care about these things,
About freedom.
if you care about that, you don't want to go down this road.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, is there anything that I can do about this? So I contacted my school board trustee, and he wrote me back. He's like, do you want to get coffee? I was like, what? Again, I come from a city of 10 million people.
Right.
Like, they don't listen. They don't get coffee with a random person.
They didn't just go to have coffee with their school board members.
No, not at all, And so I thought, wow, okay, this is what I should have expected that, from a place like this. And so I had a great conversation with him, and I found him to be a reasonable guy, not prone to hyperbole or getting caught up in extreme, rhetoric, but just somebody who was reasonable and certainly didn't want to go down the road of California and Washington and that sort of thing, So, so I just sort of, I stayed engaged in that way, just with my school board. I wasn't trying to meddle in and get involved in so many other things. Again, I didn't have a job. I just got here, and I was trying, what are me and my wife going to do? What kind of, and we settled on like, well, we'll just start our own little production company and try and do jobs where I can. I still had contacts in Los Angeles and, do remote work and that sort of thing. So I was doing that, but I was going to protect my kids, So if they're going to the public school, I want to make sure my voice was heard, in public school. So, so I spoke up at a school board meeting, and somebody clipped the video of my 3 minutes that I had or whatever. And it went around the state politically, and I got a call from an old friend, and he said, that video was awesome. Like that was great, because I was taking them to task for what they were doing.
Yeah.
And he goes, there's a project that that there's some donors that have some money behind, and they're trying to start this project. And I think you might be the person to run it. And I said, well, I'm not a political guy. I don't want to get into that. And they're like, no, that's exactly it. It's not political, but it's not meant to be like a think tank, or a policy organization, or something that's like, getting into the weeds with a lot of wonky stuff, I said, all right, well, I'll entertain the idea, And so I had a meeting. I said, hey, I'm a film guy. I'm a filmmaker. I love stories. I understand the power of storytelling, the power of moving pictures and video and all that. I said, that's great. Cause it's all about this. What we want to do is all about changing hearts and minds, So, well, I can do that. I can be involved in that. I have some great ideas,
Yeah.
And so that became Citizens Alliance of Idaho. And that was the first iteration, was starting that organization in late 2021, right still in the heart of the lockdowns and stuff that were happening across the country. Biden was in office at that point and everything. So we started this organization. I met a lot of legislators, a lot of folks who were on our side and really gung ho about it. And I got into all of a sudden there I am in Idaho politics, and trying to hold people accountable. And one of my pet issues was mask mandates. And I know Idaho didn't have a statewide mask mandate, but that doesn't matter because it was the school district did.
Right.
The Panhandle Health was recommending it, which caused other cities to say, well, we should have it. I remember seeing signs, if you're entering Coeur d'Alene, you got to wear a mask. I mean, they had those road signs. I mean, am I right?
Oh no, you're 100% right.
So it doesn't matter if the governor did it or not. The city council where I was living was doing it. So what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do? We should get rid of those people because especially now, like looking back, everybody just wants to forget about it.
Right.
Like, oh, well, we all made mistakes.
Yeah.
You made mistakes.
Right.
You violated the ultimate like rule of our society, of freedom. You violated it.
Right.
You shouldn't be in your position anymore. I'm sure you're a nice person, but just retire, because I need someone who's willing to protect my rights and protect my kids' rights and my neighbors' rights, And so that's at the heart of what I get to do now. I feel so extremely blessed to be working for Citizens Alliance of Idaho and doing what we do, because I'm protecting our families.
Right.
I'm protecting my family, and this past session, the mask mandate prohibition bill passed, and that was like amazing. It just shows what you can do if you can rally people together, you elect the right people, you back the right people, you support the right people, and you just work together and protect your freedom, like such a huge deal. The Medical Freedom Act, protecting girls' sports. I mean, these things seem like such no-brainers, right?
It seems so obvious. Like, dude, but how is that even I still don't get how it was even a thing.
I know.
I'm the father of 3 daughters, and dude, what I have to ask myself, where were all the dads?
Yes. Oh my.
Where are the dads? Like, what dad is going to sit by and say, oh yeah, I don't mind a 6'5" dude thinking he's going to play girls basketball or girls volleyball or whatever, girls swimming. Dude, I'm still like flabbergasted at all of that.
I know. I think it's God's grace that he hasn't put me in those direct positions.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I left California when I did, because it only got worse, in 21, if you were living.
Oh yeah.
Like I'd be in jail,
Oh.
if my daughter was 16 and being threatened with finishing 4th instead of 3rd or 2nd instead of 1st because of boys in sports, because of men in these sports, I would lose it. Like there goes that anger management that I trained myself in for 20 years, like I would lose it. Like, so it's only God's grace that he hasn't tested me yet with those ridiculous things, but I'm still able to fight for it, and do it in a rational manner and help where I need to, when it comes to these issues within our state with the organization that I'm with. And so I've been doing that now, like I said, since 21. And, I feel like we've had great success in building a united coalition of just conservatives that help, Idaho stay and preserve it in the way and make it stronger, for all the reasons that so many people have moved here.
Yeah.
I'm not the only one that's moved here. Everybody knows.
No,
there's a lot more.
Yeah. And I definitely have heard the people say, oh man, stay out. Idaho's got a gate or whatever they say. I literally sat down with an 84-year-old gentleman last night, and just a super cool dude. And his family's been here, like one of these 4 generations or whatever. Just very cool guy. And he was, he had said, man, I can completely understand why people would want to come here. It's such a great place, man. I welcome them, and they're just, and he was just like
awesome.
One of these, just that guy, come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Let's, and people will say that to me because I think I am I don't know if I'm a third or fourth generation. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But when people will say something like that to me, I'm like, well, why wouldn't people want to live here? It's so beautiful.
It is.
Like, it's just like in this summertime, Coeur d'Alene is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And but I mean, why wouldn't people want to come here? And so I get it. Like my wife and I got married while we were in college. And we were over in Washington, over on the coast. And we graduated. We hadn't started a family yet, but we literally were like, we're from here, obviously, but what better place to raise a family than here?
Yeah.
So it wasn't even a question. We both had job opportunities over there, but we're like, no, you know what?
Yeah.
We want our kids to be.
Well, God bless you, Dave. That's great. I'm glad you're here.
Well, and some of the things that you're saying about, man, I just came from there. As you know, I owned a Lyfe Public House. I had a lot of retired police officers that escaped from California, Portland, Seattle.
Yeah.
That's what it is. What it is. That's where they all came from. And I would say, actually, I don't know if I don't know if I ever met one that didn't come here with, man, we've got to not let this become what I just left.
It's so true.
And it's crazy, but I'll watch like politically, and because in Idaho, I was kind of raised, you live and you let live.
Live and let live.
Man, you worry about you, I'll worry about me, and I'm not going to worry about you, and you don't worry about me. That's the mindset that we had, which sounds great until someone's trying to shove something down your throat that isn't okay. And by nature, a lot of us from Idaho are just like, oh man, hey, but it's a lot of the people that are involved in politics or involved in trying to change are literally people from the places that they didn't have the freedoms that we have here.
Right.
And they're like, no, I've seen this story. And it's like they're from the future. I've seen this story.
Yeah.
It happened, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15, whatever it was. And this is the trail you're going down. This is where it leads.
Right.
And
it always leads that way.
You don't want to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they're saying stuff like, well, we're going to get it right this time.
Right.
Like, no, it just doesn't.
Right. It doesn't. It doesn't. And it's not a good outcome.
No.
Well, obviously this show is Lyfe, Lyfe, which stands for Live Your Freedom Every Day.
Every day, baby.
So I'm a freedom guy.
Yeah.
And I think we should.
And most people are.
Yes. Let's be respectful to people,
yes.
Be loving to people,
yes.
Be, we honor them. We don't have to agree with them though. I'm not a NASCAR guy, but I have nothing against NASCAR people.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, hey, tell me all about NASCAR. For me, it's going to be someone making a left turn for about, 4 hours. I don't understand it.
Right.
Doesn't mean I have anything against NASCAR people.
No.
I'm going to listen because they're going to be excited and I'm going to listen to their story. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be like, you know what? Still not a NASCAR guy. But it's crazy that we have somehow, we can't be that way in life.
Well, but that's the thing. Most people are still. I think most people are still.
Yeah.
I mean, in your everyday interactions, you can have that. It's when the spotlight is put on you, or when you're forced to, especially if you're on social media, like somebody say, I have so many deleted posts, because I'm not going to engage,
right.
with some of that stuff, but people do. And so they'll go, you'll see an hour-long conversation, 500 threads, 500 posts long about people hating NASCAR and loving NASCAR, right? Because people just want something to do, But I think for the most part, like I'm a very positive, forward thing. Like I never attribute to malice, where you can attribute to just incompetence, right? If somebody did something bad. I also don't want to assume that somebody is doing something nefariously. I'm going to assume they're doing it for a good reason, and it may be not the reason that I think is right, but I want to at least assume they're doing it because they somewhere deep inside they think it's a good idea. They're not doing it easy, Um, but and so with that respect, like I really hope that we can still encourage that civil discourse, even online, even in social media and all that stuff. Because when you get right down to it, you know, when you're sitting across from somebody that you disagree with, you should, this is America, you should be able to have a civil conversation.
Right.
You know, and I'm so thankful for what I do, you know, in helping to try and champion those ideas and champion those values here in Idaho. And, you know, I see online a lot of grief about how, you know, our organization, you know, we receive grants and donations from across the entire country. You know, people donate to Citizens Alliance, and then a lot of that money is used here in Idaho to help preserve conservatism and to preserve our values. And I don't think people truly understand how much of the success in Idaho has been because of so many people across the country.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, again, when you come here and people just want to say, oh, we don't want to have any out of state ideas, or we don't have any out of state money, or out of state this, or out of state that. And it's kind of just a lot of rhetoric to me, you know? And sure, have I been caught up in it? And not every now and again to say, oh, we don't want California values on abortion being here in Idaho, you know? Those are out of state ideas and that sort of thing. But when it comes to people that truly believe in liberty and freedom, and they see the potential in Idaho, I mean, everybody should be just thanking the people who donate to our organization to help preserve our way of life here.
Yeah.
You know, this should be nothing but a thank you.
Yeah, I agree.
If I could toot my own horn,
come on,
a minute, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I just because I'm grateful. Like, I am so grateful for any organization that fights for freedom and liberty. You know, we may not all agree on the tactics. We may not all agree on personality types and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we're trying to just prevent this horrible takeover, this horrible Marxist takeover, and that's permeated throughout the entire all the blue states and all this stuff. I mean, it never ends. It never ends. The wokeness is a virus, and it never ends. And so I'm just gonna keep doing what we're doing, you know, and work on it. And I feel like I'm living kind of like a double life, because my whole life has been about film and television. And now, you know, I'm doing stuff politically here.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think like, and for me, it does satisfy both itches, because I do get to like look for stories and highlight stories and try and find personal stories to help bring light to an issue, you know, or to someone's problem, or to celebrate a win. But I think that's why, you know, when you first introduced me, the film festival aspect was such another thing that I didn't think was going to happen.
Right.
You know, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. But it was on my list when I first moved here.
Yeah, come on. And I definitely want to talk about the film festival, but
yeah,
could we back up just for a quick second?
Yes.
Because you're married, you had 3 kids. What was, like when you just said, hey, we've got to get out of here, we're going to go whatever to Coeur d'Alene. What was your wife's, like, what was she thinking with all of this? Like how?
Yeah, she was fully on board with leaving.
Yep.
It was just a matter of where.
Yeah.
And the best part about that story that you're right, I totally skipped over that, was in, I believe it was late July or August of 2020, when Coeur d'Alene was became the top of the list.
Yeah.
I had been to all the other places that were on our list. Like, I'd personally been there. My wife maybe had been to a couple of them. But I'd never been here. I'd never been to Coeur d'Alene, never been to North Idaho. And neither has my wife. And I said, well, here's what we should do. You should go up there and check it out. And our son was 3 months old at the time. I said, and obviously you have to take him with you, because she's nursing his mom, and, you know, and so she's like, okay, yeah. So she came up here for a 2 or 3 day trip by herself.
Really?
In the summer.
I did not know that.
Yeah, in July or August of
Oh, that's not a bad time to come to Corpus.
Not a bad time at all. And she came up here and she was like, oh, nobody's wearing a mask. I'm at a farmer's market and there's a band playing. Like it is gorgeous up here. Like she did one of the lake cruises.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She's like, oh my gosh, it is gorgeous up here. I said, well, can you see yourself living up there? I mean, I think she got with a realtor or something to kind of go look at homes and kind of just look at the areas, and she goes, yeah, there's a lot to offer.
I've known you for a while. I didn't know that.
Oh, you did?
I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's cool.
And so, she stayed at a little Airbnb. Somebody had like an ADU, or is that what you call it? Like an additional.
Oh yeah, I think it is AD. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, on their property. So she stayed there, and the homeowners were still in their home. She's like, they're really nice, and So I said, well, look, I didn't want to go visit because I could fall in love with it, but if my wife doesn't love it, so I was like, just figure that you go. If you can see yourself living there, then I'm good. Because I was ready to go.
Yeah.
I didn't care where.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, this was checking off all the boxes. It had the lakes and the water. It had 4 seasons. It had trees, hiking. It had all this stuff. And it was a small town. And I looked up stores and restaurants and I'm like, can we get this stuff there? Because I didn't know where we were moving to. Yeah. So you just kind of look up everything. And it was all, I said, it checked all the boxes. And so, so then we were just like, all right, buy or rent, doesn't matter. We're going to go, and we ended up finding a rental, and we wanted to buy, but we were still in a sale back in California, and it was taking much longer because of the it should have closed it should have closed earlier, but it didn't. So we had to wait. So we had to rent. And then by the time it closed, the market just shot up, and we were like, okay, I guess we'll sit here for a little bit and see what happens, because of the election and Trump and Biden and all that. So it was a very, very strange time, but we settled in and made some great friends that got involved and everything. But if she didn't come up here and do that all by herself with our 3-month-old, I still have a photograph of her,
that's crazy. And
up here.
Brave, man. I mean,
she had breakfast at, where did she have breakfast? She told me she had breakfast at, Chompers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And, she's like, but I sat on the patio just in case, just in case they wanted us to put on masks. We were so scarred,
Yeah.
She's like, but I sat on the patio. And my waiter turned out to be from Sacramento or something like that,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool. And he was like, I love it here. So anyway, that was great. So she came back and we found a place and we packed up and drove out here.
Yeah. It's awesome, man.
It was great.
Now I want to get to the North Idaho Film Festival.
Yes.
And the thing that is, I know you said you love telling stories. You're a storyteller. You love watching that happen. Literally the reason why I do this podcast, it might be just for selfish reasons. I love hearing people's stories. It's fascinating to me how people are here and how'd they get here from there and what happened, what made, just what goes into all of the life's decisions and things happen in our control and out of our control. And just because everyone has a story.
Yeah.
And it's, I could just listen to people's stories all day long because I'm just fascinated by them.
Yeah.
Talked about North Idaho Film Festival.
Yeah. So when I got here, I had this sort of the town, because again, I hadn't been here yet.
Yeah.
So I had to move here to figure out what here was. And it had this small town feel, this touristy town, definitely downtown Coeur d'Alene. And it kind of reminded me of Park City, Utah, or Telluride, Colorado, or some of these places that hosted film festivals for years. And I was like, is there a Coeur d'Alene Film Festival or something to that equivalent here? And I looked one up and there wasn't one. There had been film festival events over the years, but there was nothing that was established. And so I thought, well, I mean, maybe I can start one. I know a ton of filmmakers already. I know how that festival circuit works. I know all of the ins and outs of, doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had already been doing it essentially with my last organization. So I thought, well, I would just have a home base and just do it here. And so I put some feelers out there. I got connected with somebody who was planning a Coeur d'Alene Film Festival, but because of 2020, they canceled it. And then 21, they weren't going to have it. And then 22 came around and maybe they were going to have it, but then the people that were going to run it had some personal issues or medical problems or something to that effect. So it didn't happen. And so, I was like, well, I'm just going to write up a proposal. I'm just going to build out a proposal. So if I meet somebody or talk to somebody about it, I can pitch it to them, And there I was sitting in Lyfe Public House.
Come on. I remember that day.
Yeah. And this guy comes in who I had met maybe once or twice before, perhaps. And the subject of the film festival came up because he was talking about how he would go to Sundance. He'd been there a bunch of times. I said, oh yeah, I had a bunch of times. And I said, yeah, it'd be great if there was a film festival here. I said, I agree. In fact, I have a proposal. You want to see it? And he was like, yeah, sure. And I turned it around. I showed him this whole pitch deck. He was like, holy cow, you already have it. I was like, yeah. He's like, well, why don't we just do it? And I thought, oh, well, yeah. So we had a couple more meetings about it. And it was like, yeah, let's do it, and let's just run it like a normal film festival. We'll put a call out for films and we'll only try to accept the best, the best of what we saw. And the whole point of the film festival is to highlight films that normally won't get seen by our community. We've got 2 movie theaters in town. They show all of the big mainstream Hollywood movies. Sometimes they'll do special events and show an independent movie here or there or something like that. But there's and what I believe a film festival is for is not just to highlight maybe the big films that might be coming out, like a sneak peek or something, but they should be highlighting films that don't have distribution, that no one will ever see. People are out there making art. I think it's an art form.
Yes,
film.
absolutely.
It's an art form. And people make fantastic movies that nobody will ever see again because they never get distributed. And so a film festival is the perfect opportunity to go see something that you would never see on Netflix, you'd never see on the big screen. And when I say never, I'm being hyperbolic because sometimes they do get picked up and they will get on there. But for the most part, they're not going to get seen. Well, especially if it's a short film. But there's a lot of value in these stories, and having run an organization in Los Angeles that was definitely looking for films that weren't going to be shown mainstream simply because of the filmmaker's worldview. It was a natural fit, for us to kind of sit here and curate a nice collection of films that everybody can enjoy. I mean, one of the best, and I'll admit this because I'm a public person. One of the best compliments I got from last year's film festival was somebody who was very skeptical about our film festival, and because of my work in politics, and they said, you know what? I got to commend you. Some of the films that you're showing, I would not think that you would have allowed them to be seen, at your festival because of your politics, And I was like, look, I'm a movie guy. If it's a great story, and there's value in it somewhere, like I think people should see it. And even if it's something I don't agree with, because it sparks conversation. Again, it's about what better way to discuss something, an important issue, if it's couched in the context of a great movie you just saw, like how fun is that? It's fun.
It is fun,
I just, and there's so many great films out there that have great messages about freedom, about liberty, and they spark debate, We're going to screen this year a 30th anniversary of Braveheart.
Come on.
Talk about living your freedom every day, right?
There you go, man.
Like this is an opportunity to celebrate a movie about a story of freedom, of a people pushing back against the tyrannical king of England so that their country can be free, and that's at the core, it's just a human story. All humans yearn to be free. It's just in us,
Yep.
It manifests differently in different cultures. And I think we've done it the best in the Western world, and it should be celebrated. So Braveheart is a great example of that. There are other films that one may see as being controversial or risque or too, I don't know, just like, I don't know how to put it, but I guess those were, I already gave two descriptive words. But they're important because they would spark debate. And I'm specifically thinking of a movie called Dallas Buyers Club. Did you ever see that movie? Matthew McConaughey.
I haven't seen it. I've heard of it.
You've heard of it, yeah. So Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto plays a transvestite, cross-dresser. I don't even think we were in the transgender world when that movie came out.
A while ago.
Yeah. So, and McConaughey plays this rodeo cowboy who hates gay people, simply because they're gay, but they both find themselves sick with HIV. And so they partner up to try and find, adequate medication that is not approved by the FDA, but they can get over the border in Mexico. Right. So there's a lot going on in that movie that highlights some of the ridiculousn's of our country and the FDA and all that sort of thing. Right.
Right.
And it also shows how some two people who would never work together, they hate each other, so to speak, find a way to figure out who each other is because they have a common goal. And now you've brought two people together and they become best friends because they know each other, and they can see past that superficial difference that they have. And that's what the free market does. It brings people that normally would be at war with each other together for a common interest. And I think the more we can highlight those types of stories, the more we can engage in that type of relationship with each other, the better of a society will be. So I'm all about talking to your bitter enemy or the people that you're not comfortable with. So I don't ever want people to think that just because I think of a certain way that I'm going to gatekeep things, because I don't think that I believe in my principles so strongly that I think that they can stack up to any attack, and I'm a believer. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I have no problem with my belief in Jesus. You can attack me all you want. That's fine. You can attack all of those things all you want. I know they stand up. They stand up.
Yep.
And so I'm not afraid of a challenge,
Yeah.
So anyway, all that aside, the festival is going to be great.
Yeah. Okay. Talking about the dates of the festival, talking about how to get tickets, what do I need to know?
Yes. So everything, our hub is noidff.com. So North Idaho Film Festival, noidff.com. You go there and then you can see what is on the schedule, what's going to play this year. We have a lean schedule. We've got 2 days over at Regal Cinema at the Riverstone.
Yep.
And 2.5 days because the Thursday night is the Braveheart screening. And then we've got all sorts of different blocks. So we've got blocks of shorts, documentary shorts, narratives, feature narratives, feature documentaries, and from all over the spectrum, many different topics, some really touching stories, some really tragic stories, and one of the more unique, I watched it twice. I thought it was so good. It's a comedy, but it has such a great, it's such a great take on a mockumentary, without just being a mockumentary, so I don't want to spoil it or anything, but there's some I'm really proud of the lineup that we have this year. So, it's September 25th, 26th and 27th. And, all the info is at noidff.com.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's going to be, dude, last year I was so bummed. My son had a basketball tournament, or I think it was a basketball tournament away. So I was literally gone all the days of the film festival.
Yeah.
But I literally, the second I got the dates, locked my calendar off.
Yes.
Because, dude, I want to be there, man. I love stories. And I am does Braveheart just going to show Thursday night?
Yeah, just one night.
Dude, I would say if you're watching, get tickets, man.
Yeah, get tickets.
Because that's going to be a
sell.
blast.
Yeah, we've only like really kind of hinted that it's playing, so we haven't really done a full thing yet. I think by the time this episode drops, we will have advertised it.
Yeah.
Make sure you get seats.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be cool, man.
And we might have a cool surprise.
Come on, I like
for
surprises, especially cool ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Dave, I think it's strange because kind of how you set this up today was like, I never would have thought that I'd be doing what I'm doing now here, but God has a path for all of us, and I'm just here for the ride.
Come on. I totally agree, man. It's crazy. There's I'm 55, and there's more times than I can count that something happens in life that alters the course.
Yeah.
And which isn't bad. Sometimes you think, oh my goodness, this happened, this is terrible, and then 6 months later, like, oh man, I'm so glad that happened because I wouldn't have done this, or I wouldn't have had this, or I wouldn't have met this person, or whatever. And I love doing this because I love to hear people's stories. I love to sit down with people and chat, and I'm very appreciative of you telling your story and sitting here and talking to us. Man, if you like to hear people's stories and like this, comment on this, share this with other people, and all the stories might not be for you, but man, there's going to be just story after story after story. And I think there's value we can learn. We can learn, we can be inspired, we can laugh, we can cry, we can, just so many things we can gain from, hearing people's stories. We might not agree with them, but we might be able to understand why they have that perspective that they have. Like your perspective might be completely different than mine, but I didn't have the same background that you have, or I didn't have the same, like the stuff that happened in your life or the people that surrounded you might have, altered your perspective or changed your perspective or given you the perspective that you have.
Yeah.
And man, I think it's, you hear somebody say something, you're like, oh, right away. I think sometimes we say, okay, that's for me or that's not for me.
Right.
And we don't take time to get to know them and say, man, okay, I heard this. I don't necessarily agree with it, but tell me why you think that.
Yeah.
We've lost that.
Yeah.
And man, I hope that we can regain that. And I hope that in some way, some small way, we can regain that by telling and listening to people's stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's cool.
Unless it's NASCAR.
Yeah. And I don't know why I said NASCAR. I don't have anything for or against NASCAR. It's just, there's something about the whole NASCAR group that I just don't understand.
Yeah. There's a lot of people. I mean, the most people go. I mean, the biggest crowds, right? NASCAR crowds.
Lots of friends that love NASCAR.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't get it.
You know what I hear? I think it's like they say once you go in person,
and that could be,
it's like a completely different experience, and you just get hooked. And it's the same. Like it's the same thing with hockey. Like if you see a hockey game live, it's way more fascinating and fun than watching it on TV. So maybe there's an element of that.
Yeah, there could be. And I mean, here's the deal. The friends of mine that love NASCAR, they're super cool people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're just like great. Yeah,
you want to be a part of it.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah. And then about 3 minutes in, after about 9 left turns, I'm like, is it, I think I got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe I got to go to one live.
And I think
maybe I've got to do that.
But I'm kind of with you because I used to like going to the horse races, but there's like 9 races a day and they just go around one time and you win money or you don't.
Yeah. And I could see that.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
500 laps or 50 or
250
laps.
Yeah.
It's a long day. There's also, remember, a lot of beer involved too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that could be it.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thanks for
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in. And again, man, share this, like this, and man, go to noidff.com, get your tickets, come to the film festival.
Yeah, you'll see us.
And let's just grow this and make the film festival just a really cool part of our culture, man, because it is an art form. And man, let's celebrate art.
Yeah.
That's what I got to say.
For sure.
Take it easy. We'll see you later, man. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Awesome.